Good afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. And I'm your host, Sal Greco. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, hit that notification button as well. If you're on Rumble, hit that like button, hit that Rumble button if you can. And if you're watching us on X, please share this out to all your friends and some low information people that might be in your circle that need to be informed, especially today, which is a very hot day in New York City where it's primary day. It's primaries for the Democratic part of the mayoral race. So that there's other primaries going on, but look at this right here, okay? Now, West Palm Beach, as you know, is on the other side of Mar-a-Lago. And Manhattan is 12 degrees higher. Not only is it 94 degrees, it's 106, it feels like. So that means that you will probably, if you put an egg on a sidewalk right now in Manhattan, it'll fry. And I'm sure that some degenerate might be trying it as we speak, because as you know, crime is through the roof in New York City, and there's all kinds of mishigash that goes on. But hey, Eric Adams tells you crime is down, jobs are up, the city's not surviving, it's thriving. So, and look at this. Is that the heat index? Look at Con Edison. Oh boy. Look what it tells you what it feels like. 102 in 102 in Brooklyn. Is that 108 in near Queens? Oh my God. It feels like 108 at the border of Brooklyn, Queens. Stay the hell away from there. Jesus. 110 up. Oh my God. Yeah, just I don't know, get an umbrella out, because you're gonna need it if you're walking around, because it's really hot. So stay safe there. But again, in New York City right now is the primary. All right. So of course, the illustrious mayor of New York City was spotted by Josie Straffman today going to the voting booth. Let's just play this. This is Eric Adams going to vote.
Hey.
Just going.
Who are you going to rank?
Yeah, who are you gonna vote for?
Who are you ranking?
1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Eric Adams.
You're going to write them in?
Yep, 5 times. I'm looking forward to November. Oh, sorry.
What about council? You going to vote for Chi?
Yeah, see that look? He's going to vote for a socialist. He gave you that look. I'm funny how he's voting for the Democrat primary, but I thought he's running as an independent himself. So he still is affiliated as a Democrat, just so all the MAGA crowd knows that he's not a Republican. Yeah, this was another thing that happened as well over the weekend. So here you go. Look at this guy partying yet again this weekend after those strikes by the United States into Iran. And he was out partying at this place called Sands of Persia. It's a lounge in Queens. Right after the U.S. struck Iran, he's puffing on hookah, which, by the way, is not legal in the city. You cannot have that in your restaurant or your lounge, but he's always seen with it. I'm sure he had plenty of it at Con Sofrito back in the time frame that place was open. So he was out partying to the break of dawn. And of course, we have this. Why? We need to thank the president's Justice Department, particularly Emo Bove, who looks like some kind of villain out of the movie Count Dracula. So, but to discuss this and more is a good friend of the show. Okay, she's a former New York City Corrections Commissioner. She's a former Brooklyn prosecutor, and she's currently a great defense counselor, and that's friend of the show, Sarena Townsend.
Hello.
Sarena, thanks for coming on. I know you're sitting there, and you're in New York City or in that area where it's like it feels like it's probably like you're in a desert. So
as my people would say, we're schwitzing out here.
Yeah, you have to. You got to hide somewhere. I mean, it is scorching down there. In Florida, we always have hot weather, but man, New York's on a record pace heat wave. But
Yeah.
So there's a lot to talk about here, obviously. But first, this election, right? because today you have this primary, and people, I don't know if they know this, but you won't know the results for about a week because of ranked choice voting. So I don't know if you know anything about the laws of election, like how does that all work with the primary being, it's like a week. We won't know the results. And, you know, people already had this experience about another election, but now it's people are like, what are you talking about a week later? Because we won't know who won until next week.
It's horrible to have to wait that long. I mean, people are chomping at the bit already. It's gotten super aggressive just in the last week or so, and very competitive and cross endorsements. It's just been like a little bit crazy. So I think people are going to be pretty frustrated to have to wait that long to find out who's winning this primary.
It's going to take a week or so to certify an election. I've never heard of this. It's not election day. It's election week. You know, we were joking around about this with the president, the presidential election. Now it's a norm. On New York City, we need a week to certify this primary because how do you know this isn't rigged? How do we know this isn't rigged?
Yeah, they're claiming it takes a week to ratify it, but how do you know it's not taking them a week to like mess it all up? Who's manning the polls? I don't know.
We got to fix this to see if Cuomo, I'm done. I don't know. That's what it seems like. There's a power struggle in the party. Mm-hmm. But actually, since we're mentioning all of that, you just saw Eric Adams. He's out there voting today. You just saw this weekend. This guy was too bad I can't play Party All the Time, but it literally that song flashes in your head as you see this guy dancing or whatever he's doing at the hookah lounge. Well, first of all, hookah is not legal. You can't just have it in your place in New York City. And I don't know why there's no enforcement with that, but, you know, we could go down the rabbit hole. As we've learned, certain establishments get away with anything you want if you're friends of Eric Adams. Mm-hmm. And but we have a certain person in particular to thank about this, and that's Emil Bove, who now is up for his I guess he was trying to put him in, I believe it's the 3rd district. It's in New Jersey. They're trying to put him up for a judgeship. So they wrote an article about this guy in a Wall Street Journal. And I found this right here being in particular in this article. He says, it writes here, he's currently a top official at the Justice Department, which is scary. And his recent handling of the case against New York Mayor Eric Adams doesn't inspire confidence. Because as you know, when you're at these hearings, remember, you got a committee, the Senate gets to question you. You have to pass this in order to get appointed as a judge because the president appointed him to get confirmed. It's a confirmation hearing, and it's in New Jersey. This guy let off, that guy that I showed right there. And it says in the article, all the points that we mentioned, how they didn't even look at the merits of the case. They just tried to dismiss this thing and hang it over his head to use as some kind of political football. Now, I went in the Post when I mentioned imparting all the time. I said, well, it appears that Trump's DOJ doesn't really care about anything in fairness of justice or the law. They're crypto bros, because that's a whole nother subject. But what is your take on Bove might become a judge somehow, and he's clearly one of the most unethical human beings to ever grace the halls of Justice Department?
You know, I have strong opinions on it. Obviously, I do not like anything that I've heard about Emil Bove, anything I've read about him, anything I've seen about him, especially with the handling of the Eric Adams case. It was super corrupt. And the thing is, Sal, like, you and I have talked about that being a quid pro quo. A lot of people have talked about it, but let's realize that it's not just opinion and rumor anymore. Because at some point recently, there was a judge who decided whether ICE should be allowed onto Rikers Island or not. And in that judge's ruling, in the ruling where the judge said no ICE on Rikers anytime soon, like denied Trump that opportunity, in the ruling itself, one of the reasons the judge decided that way was because of the quid pro quo, because the judge specifically said, that what Eric Adams did and what Emil Bove did and what Trump did for Eric Adams was in order to get ICE on Rikers and possibly other things. And it was a quid pro quo for them to drop the case against Eric Adams in order to get ICE on Rikers. And, you know, whether or not ICE should be on Rikers was a whole other discussion. But the fact that it happened in such a nefarious way, there is now an actual decision on paper saying that it was, in fact, a quid pro quo, a decision by a judge. So now you're going to make the orchestrator of that quid pro quo, Emil Bove, a judge? That's how I feel about it.
The whole thing really seems bizarre. Like there's more. Look, right here, it says, in an 18-page ruling, the judge found, and this is what you're talking about, the city council had shown a likelihood of success because of its argument about the appearance of a quid pro quo between the Trump administration and Mr. Adams. And as you know, you were a commissioner in ICE. Has ICE ever been able to circumvent the city law that's in there and the state law that says that ICE cannot cooperate? I mean, corrections cannot cooperate with ICE.
No, and they're not supposed to. And you know, there hadn't been an office on Rikers Island in over a decade for a reason. And all of these extraneous arguments that the Trump administration made about how, you know, the feds need to be able to cooperate with the Department of Correction, not having an office on Rikers Island for ICE has nothing to do with that. Corrections could clearly participate and cooperate with the feds on any other level, on the levels that are mandated, without them having an office on Rikers. It's been done. And if it hasn't been done, that's because of incompetence, not because somebody's not following the law.
And you know, I think we actually pointed this out from the very beginning because we knew that there's that law that you can't circumvent. And if you did a executive order, which Eric didn't do himself, he put that other guy, his deputy mayor, to do it. Okay. and that's a whole nother story. That guy couldn't even get past confirmation hearings to become the head of a corporation counsel. And that's Randy
Maestro. Yeah.
He did this executive order, which isn't even valid because it's the deputy mayor. On top of it, and that's just to not appear that it's like a quid pro quo, which it clearly is. How do you circumvent a city law as the mayor when you know it'll get challenged and struck down by a judge, just like we saw? It clearly, exactly what we said happened. And now what? Now who's left holding the bag? The taxpayers and people that are like, where's their justice here? There is none.
There is none, because here's the thing, like even with the striking down of ICE, even with like taking care of the instant matter, right? The matter at hand, Emil Bove is still going to be a judge. Like, where's the accountability there, right? Everyone's like, by the way, the reason we can't do these very important things is because of this guy, Count Dracula, as you said, right? Now he's going to be Judge Dracula. Like, I don't understand why we're rewarding this guy when it's clear, plain as day, that he orchestrated this. Come on.
I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like this. And there's also recently there was that whole episode, and people are trying to throw it under a rug for a reason, where there was a abduction scheme over in Manhattan where one of these crypto bros that's a friend of Eric Adams, a donor of Eric Adams, and his buddy Brock Pierce, who is a mega donor to Eric Adams and also friend of the Trump circle, they abducted this Italian guy, and that whole thing, the police, the NYPD security detail was involved in that. I have been for a long time, besides the Bove, Boris Epstein, Steve Bannon connection to Eric Adams and all that whole, they're trying to make him blue MAGA. There's the crypto thing. And there's actually an article involving the Trump family with this crypto thing. I don't know if I can pull this up, but it's important to highlight this, trying to connect the dots. And right here, the Trump family is quietly building a crypto empire. It said in this article, the Trump family is building a crypto empire that puts their profits on a collision course with the president. And this is something, it's been very quiet behind the scenes, but with Eric Adams, who is, I think he took his first payment or something, he was the mayor, he was in crypto.
Yeah.
So there's there's definitely a connection here. I want you to say something going on with crypto. There's a connection with Brock Pierce, all the real estate tycoons that they're friends with, Witkoff, all these guys are involved in crypto. And so is Eric Adams. And I'm trying to think of why was this guy let off? And crypto is something that I'm staring right at. It's in your face. It's actually in your face.
Yeah, I think that, look, Eric Adams is the type of person to say where there's smoke, there's fire, right? He's willing to do all the perp walks he wants before anybody's convicted of anything, you know? So yeah, you see these kinds of things. You see these favors. You see the whole crypto stuff being like a thread between the two. You see the same players, you know what I mean? Like it's just, it's over and over and over again. You're just going to keep seeing these things. And only later on down the road, like you and I always say, we'll say it here today, and then 6 months down the road, you're going to see articles about it.
That's what seems to happen here. And you just saw like, it's like radio silence. There's radio silence about a couple issues, but the one with the crypto case in particular, where they abducted this Italian guy and Eric Adams' fingerprints are literally on it. It's his security guy. It's his city. It's his NYPD. And they were like, I guess you being uncompensated security for this NYPD. It just, you know, here's more in this article. It says the crypto community loves Eric Adams all of a sudden. And he got to follow Vice President J.D. Vance to speak before 30,000 people at the largest crypto conference. That's from Brock Pierce himself. Okay. Yep. And here's the thing. At that crypto conference, this gentleman that they are now, you know, is in custody, that's involved in this, that he apparently tried to abduct this guy. He was supposed to be there as well. He's a lawyer. So, you know, your head is on a swivel spinning. And the only thing I could think of that is out in the open is there's a crypto connection, which would be the reason two people who don't know each other but have the same associations would look out for him and say, I'm going to take you off the hook of something real serious that's criminal. And Sarena, all pending investigations have been put on hold. That's why you don't hear about Eddie Caban and you don't hear about Madry. It's all on hold.
Isn't that amazing?
Which means, Sarena, what? All those victims are what? Now you're in limbo.
You're in limbo. Everything in response to that is in an upheaval, right? The victims don't get their justice. People start losing their memories so that if they have to testify later on down the road, they can't do it, you know, properly. And people are off the hook. And then don't forget, we always talk about the co-defendants, the co-conspirators, the people who were also indicted. Are those people going to get off? Are those, you know, convictions going to get overturned or deals going to get changed? You know, you have all of these people who are victims of Eric Adams and the quid pro quo deal and all of the corruption. And it spans, you know, from actual victims to co-conspirators. It's the whole gamut.
I just think it's a travesty of justice. And I said it before, the biggest mistake so far in the Trump presidency is the handling of Eric Adams' case and the effects of it, what have happened. It's a ripple effect. And
absolutely,
you know, I know what's going on now with this whole Israel-Iran conflict, but this seems like more like the WWE than anything else to me compared to letting off. Remember, Eric Adams has ties. He's a mayor of New York City. And I know he likes to say, I'm the CEO of the largest corporation in America, which actually Andrew Cuomo said himself. I think he's listening to Eric Adams. But being the mayor of the city, he's got connections to global, you know, whether it's China and Turkey. Like, so you saw he was partying to the break of dawn again.
Of course.
And look who he was walking with there. Winnie Greco. Wasn't she being looked at by the FBI? And you see what I'm saying?
The flagrant flaunting is so offensive. It is so offensive.
It really is, because, you know, and on the flip side of that is the case of one Luigi Mangione, who you've been on top of. This is a case that I said, I looked at the facts of it. Could this guy be guilty or whatever? Yeah, I mean, it looks like but you have a problem when you absolutely have tainted this case in a manner that it's criminal. And why? Once again, it's something where Eric Adams has his fingerprints on. Why? Because he did this elaborate perp walk. The first is entire life. Remember,
Yeah,
Eric
that's right.
being in this perp walk, okay, was the most police work he has ever done in his career. All right, he did no police work as a cop technically.
Yeah.
Like it was just laughable what he did. That was the first one of his whole career, and he wasted a ton of resources on someone that very clearly, by the way, wasn't wearing leg shackles on that. When he could have just took 2 detectives, that is normal, to drive over to Pennsylvania, pick him up, and bring him to New York City. But he wanted this. And then later on, Sarena, he goes on HBO with the chief of detectives, somebody no one likes to talk about, this guy Kenny, who's got a pending lawsuit. He's no one's angel. People just, I don't know, a lot of low information people out there. They don't do any research. So this guy, Kenny, and Eric Adams are discussing discovery about this case, yet that discovery was not handed over to Mangione's own lawyer, which is the first chain of events that should be going on here. And then the police commissioner, which you mentioned last time on here, is talking about Mangione and what he looks like, and he's not chiseled enough. And then there's more. So they're listening in what was it? The not the lawyer,
right? The one of the DAs at the Manhattan DA's office. Yeah, or a paralegal at the DA's office.
Oh, yes, sir. The paralegal was listening in to Mangione talking. You can't do this. So
you ever hear the phrase, it's yours to lose? I mean, you definitely have, right? Everybody knows that. It's like that case was theirs to lose. That is the type of situation where had they just handled him like any other defendant that they could have handled, that they should have handled with regular due process, without the whole splashy press, Eric Adams showing his stupid face on the perp walk, divulging discovery and evidence via television rather than through the discovery process, having paralegals listening in on confidential conversations, making statements on statements, in public by the police commissioner herself, by Eric Adams. He does not learn his lesson. He keeps running his damn mouth about this guy. I don't know what the obsession is. Maybe he wants to be him, but because he gets the adoration that Mayor Adams doesn't get. But it's just so stupid, because if they just did their jobs, they probably would have had the right amount of evidence to convict him fair and square, not of the overcharges, by the way, which we've talked about. And again, that's another thing that they're treating him differently on. They're treating him like a terrorist when he did not commit terrorism. They're charging him with, all sorts of things that he did not do, even if they could prove that he did some of this stuff. Like, just do your job the right way, and you would have had a regular old conviction with the right level of punishment. But they just can't help themselves.
No, it's a bunch of self-impressed people. I am stunned. Like this, like you said, and being in the NYPD, you just know you have a case, somebody does something. Okay, you do the regular. I'm not saying it's a routine thing, but it's kind of like, all right, you bring the person in, then you don't do the perp walk that way. If you do it where you do in front of a station house and you put him in the car, because that's like the clip for the press. Yeah. And then you bring him in, he gets arraigned, and that's it. But you definitely don't go on the media and start discussing the case, which not even the FBI does, but apparently this guy couldn't stop. I know what you're talking about, by the way. He went on that interview, I believe he had Amber Rose there, and he's talking to an anti-Semite, this guy Sneeko, whatever he calls himself, and he's talking about Luigi Mangione again.
So living right in his head.
I'm speechless. My mouth dropped saying, what is this guy doing? This case, and no matter how there it is. This was another
classic picture.
This is another beauty by Eric Adams. Was this classic interview where, again, he made a fool out of himself, and he's talking about Luigi Mangione again. And it's like this case, if it wasn't tainted, it gets more tainted by the day. So what is the latest on this case? Because I saw there was some kind of filings that went back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone yet has mentioned in the courtroom or to the judge or brought any kind of motion up saying, Look at all this prejudicial stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Luigi can't get a fair trial.
Yeah, and his lawyers, Karen Agnifilo, in particular, has mentioned this a bunch of times, and I do think in her most recent filing, she says it again. I think the papers going back and forth are a real battle. There's a lot of really good information in these motions, but also it gets kind of snarky. Like there is aggressive motion writing back and forth, as there should be. But very well done on Karen's part to address the prejudicial, stuff that's going on, and also the fact that he's being overcharged with the terrorism counts, and also the fact that they are playing games with him with respect to which trial is going to go first. That was a recent argument back and forth, and there are a lot of implications with respect to this. That is, which trial goes first, because of the fact that he may want to testify on his own behalf at one of the trials, but maybe not the other. And so it'll prejudice him if one goes before the other. There's a lot of strategy that goes on when it comes to deciding what case goes first and how. And obviously the prosecutors are using that against him. They're not stupid either. They're using their tactics and their techniques to try to prejudice him as much as possible. In fact, in their motions, they released a lot of the so-called manifesto writings. And Karen, in her response motion, is saying that was prejudicial in and of itself. There was no need for the prosecution to include as an exhibit part of these writings that had never been published publicly before, and that the judge could have totally had access to without it being processed this way so that the people could see it. But they're doing it on purpose to control the narrative, to influence the potential jurors. And she's not wrong. I mean, a lot of this stuff has not been litigated yet. There are pretrial hearings that are supposed to be had to decide whether those writings and other things were obtained legally or whether they should be suppressed. That hasn't been decided yet. And if it's supposed to be suppressed, we shouldn't be seeing it.
I know this, yet I see this. It's continuously. I see there's a lot of motions, like you said, and I think that that case in particular, if you don't change the venue, how is this not like a mistrial or not even that? The first motion would be to get it dismissed would be it's tainted. The jury's tainted, so it's a null jury, I think, right? Is that the term?
Yeah. And also, I mean, if you think about it, what Karen is doing is she probably knows that a lot of the arguments that she's making are going to get shut down. It's very hard to be, I will say, being on both sides of the aisle. Man, I thought I was a superstar winning everything as a prosecutor. And then you come over to the defense side and it's a hell of a lot harder to win because, frankly, judges are typically pro-prosecution. They're concerned. They don't want to be splashed on the front page of the New York Post. They let this person go, or they made a favorable ruling to a defendant and now they reoffend. And I get it. And I still win a lot as a defense attorney, more than I ever expected. But it is harder. It is a much harder job as a defense attorney. So I say that because I think Karen knows that her stuff is not going to all be, successful. Her arguments are not going to win the day every time. But what every good defense attorney does and what she's doing is she's setting the stage and she's making the record for potential appeal down the road if and when he does get convicted. And this whole, idea of prejudice she's not wrong. She's building a strong record of pretrial prejudicial conduct that could be looked upon very unfavorably by, an appellate judge down the road.
Hopefully not email Bo, but he's in New Jersey. That would
oh my God, could you imagine the conflict there? No, we don't see a conflict. What conflict? Let him have the case.
My buddy Eric Adams up there. He's trading crypto with the Trump family. No, we can't touch. No, what are you talking about? Funny here. Lone Silencer says someone tell Eric to order his shirts one size bigger, looking like he's about to explode like a volcano. That is true. He does wear a lot of tight shirts. I don't know why. Lampwick says, do you think the Manhattan District Attorney will get a fair trial or will it be like Trump's? That is an interesting question.
That is a good question. I think that prosecutors and prosecutorial offices have a certain appetite for certain things. And no matter what, if a person is somebody that they don't like, or a person is somebody that they want to go against, they're going to go against them, whether we agree that they should or not. You see it with a lot of high profile cases, the Trump case, the Danielle Penny case, right? Luigi, like there's a ton of stuff that goes on that's not just purely law based when it comes to high profile cases like that. And a lot of times those are the kinds of cases that could turn on a dime based on who the head prosecutor is, based on the fact that here it's DA Bragg. That changes things, because if it wasn't Bragg, those kinds of cases may be handled differently by a different lead prosecutor. So do I think it's going to be fair? I already think it's unfair, to be honest with you. I already think it's been prejudiced. And even though DA Bragg himself hasn't made like those kinds of public statements, he is the one who makes the final charging decision. And he is charging Luigi with murder in the first degree, which plainly does not fit the charge. It plainly does not fit the charge. Murder in the second degree is very straightforward. It fits this case. It is the killing of another person with the intent to kill them. Premeditation, all of that stuff, that's all murder 2, not murder 1. Murder 1, they're saying, is because he's a terrorist. Doesn't fit. It does not fit.
I don't know how you say he's a terrorist, but again, this is trying to stack the deck against someone. It's all the prejudicial stuff that's going on here. I'm still looking at this case closely. I see there's a lot of fun, but I want to see how this goes, because I want to see Eric Adams or even the police commissioner have to testify in this case to why you said what you said about Mangione prior to anything being done. The discovery. These documents are not even handed to his own lawyer yet. Yet they're sitting there saying, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And they're on shows saying what there is there. What do you mean? We don't even know what's on. His own lawyer doesn't know what you have. But you showed your hand to the media because you're a self-impressed individual. That being Eric Adams, that being this Chief Kenny, who's not a nice guy. I don't know why people think that. And then also the police commissioner, who is in her own right, not a good police commissioner. So it's like they're doing things to score points with people. I don't know, but you're with somebody's. There was a victim here that may not see any kind of justice. That family may never see justice, because this case will live in infamy and will go on for decades. If this doesn't get stopped at this point, and they railroad this guy and convict him disregarding all this stuff, you're going to end up in the Court of Appeals. And New York, I don't know. I think the Court of Appeals is not, it's like the highest court in New York. I think some of their rulings are fair. And I think if you bring this up, I don't know how you don't say, well, this guy can't get a fair trial. Eric Adams talking about this guy, this perp walk. He's never done that for anyone else. You can clearly see they've never done that gigantic perp walk for anyone else, nor for anyone in the neighborhood of doing a crime like that. I mean, we have crimes all day long in New York City. I don't see a 30-man, using an amphibious boat, the helicopter. I mean, it's like, what? Who is this guy?
He's in a movie. He thinks he's in a movie.
Joker.
Yeah, it's so true. And honestly, it might be in the end in the DA's best interest to offer a plea deal to this guy, to Luigi, because if you have a plea deal and he takes it, then, you're not going to get an appeal slapped against you. So I don't know. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but if they want to play it cautiously, they might reconsider their stance.
I think so. This case is got an asterisk to it, and it's always to be continued. But I think you're like the leading voice out there, letting people know minute to minute what's going on and what's filing and what, because this is chaos. But in the world of Eric Adams, there's nothing but chaos. That's what we've all learned. Hassan said to me, first he said, Serena, do me a favor, take Sal to Bloomingdale's for his suits from now on, or not Men's Warehouse, please. He actually messaged me. So give me a shout out on the show. I will give you a shout out, Hassan. But
don't be mean though. I'm going to take Sal to the best place where you can buy a custom suit, which is my brother's custom store, Alan David Menswear. And Sal is going to get the Serena discount. So that's where we're going to go.
That's what I should go to New York. If I don't die of heat exhaustion, because right now inside you'll be.
We'll ship it your way.
Yeah. Or you might have Trent Aragua running around, because Eric Adams did get $1 billion migrant shelter up in the Bronx, and no one wants to ask questions. The Trump administration gave him $1 billion. Let's not ask questions. MAGA Mayor Eric, MAGA Mayor. Yeah. Let's make New York City great again. Yeah. So the next case I want to bring up is another case that I've mentioned here. I haven't mentioned in a while, but you've been on top of, and that's the P.Diddy trial.
Mm-hmm.
P.Diddy, friend of Eric Adams, and of course the one and only restaurant presario, self-admitted criminal mob associate. He himself, who was arrested apparently recently on camera, Jimmy Rodriguez. That is P. Diddy. So P. Diddy, his trial has been going on, and there's a lot of stuff there. Yeah. I mean, they made a big to-do about the way he looks and all the evidence you're hearing. I personally think some of this evidence is a little redundant because they keep hitting the same things with different people. I mean,
yeah.
You already saw a few things. I saw the baby roll. It's disgusting. I saw pictures. I saw the oh my God, this guy. But what is your take on that case? How's that going? The latest with that, because there's a lot with that, and people are interesting because I don't even know if that's really a RICO case. Is more it's just him. It's him.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on this case because I think this is yet another example of prosecutors licking their lips to try to take a man down. And I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve to be taken down. He definitely does deserve to be taken down for something. He is clearly a domestic abuser. There is no doubt about it. It's on camera. Cassie was credible with respect to what happened. Cassie is the victim that was shown on that surveillance camera where he was dragging her. I mean, it's clear as day. The problem is, again, with these prosecutors who are so overeager and overzealous that they overcharge. And they think that they have to understand that juries are not stupid in the end. They're really not that dumb. They underestimate people. And I think that people get very taken aback and offended when somebody is overcharged, because let's be honest, the law is supposed to be the law and justice is supposed to be justice. And you're supposed to get charged with the thing that you did wrong, not the over thing, because you want leverage for a good disposition, a good plea, or you want the jury to compromise and give you the verdict that you actually really want and think you deserve. When you overcharge like that, it is a problem. And I think they're going to have a little trouble with the RICO count. Like you said, RICO, as you know, is not super straightforward. It's kind of this amorphous thing where you have to prove, in a way, a prosecutor likes it, because if they don't have it exact, they could just kind of shove it into RICO and think that they have a good case. But on the other hand, it's so amorphous that it's confusing to a jury. They basically have to prove that he was running a criminal enterprise and that he and his co-conspirators committed at least 2 acts of criminality to further this criminal conspiracy and this criminal organization. And so, yeah, the acts that they're claiming are like the sex trafficking, the drugs, the arson of that car. The problem is that it doesn't always work, especially in a case like this where a jury might take a look around and say, what co-conspirators? You guys only charge Diddy. Who is he conspiring with? So you have these little technicalities where the prosecutor is basically going to be like, he's such a bad guy. Listen to all these people. Look at all the lotion. Look at all the horrible things. He's so bad. And the defense is going to be like, no. You have to be more nuanced about it. It's not just he's a bad guy. Does it actually fit the elements of this crime? I don't think it's so slam dunk. I don't.
I always said in the beginning, where are the co-defendants? It's a RICO. You can't have a RICO case but one person. Battery, yes. Is he a domestic? Yep. Yeah, definitely. He's guilty of that, and he should be. There it is. There's a picture of baby roll.
A sampling.
Yeah, this is definitely up that. But to make it a RICO case, it's not, because we don't even know who are the co-defendants.
Exactly.
I could say you're a RICO. You're friends with 20 people, yet What did the 20 people do? I mean, some of these pictures are disturbing. I mean, the baby oil thing. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing, but it doesn't look good. This is evidence, but okay. But but stay trained up as the most they have on Diddy is battery. I don't see anything else. What does Sarena think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have the battery, / assault. I think that they might be able to get sex trafficking in there simply because I think that there's enough testimony that came out where he was paying people to go across state lines to come and have sex with Cassie and some other people for money or for other benefits. So I think you probably do make out the sex trafficking charge. But, I don't think that there's necessarily enough to say like, oh, even if he did do the sex trafficking, okay, let's check that box. And even if there was enough evidence to show that the arson was by him or that the drugs were procured by him, like, how are they necessarily saying that that was in furtherance of a criminal enterprise rather than he's just a skeevy, gross guy? Like, I don't know that they necessarily can tie it in beyond a reasonable doubt that this was in furtherance of a criminal enterprise, meaning that his enterprise of entertainment as an entertainment mogul was basically solely for the purpose of these criminal acts. I mean, you and I know, we all know that he ran this music business to make money from the actual legal music that he was creating and helping other people create. So I do think that there is an innocent explanation with respect to the business that he was running. So I don't know that they really get a slam dunk there, but I do think for sure if they had charged him with regular assault on the state level, they would have gotten that. They don't have that charge in this case. I do think they'll probably get the sex trafficking, though.
That's another charge I think that would stick. I mean, look, Diddy's lawyer.
Oh my God, how ridiculous!
That is funny. I think he's definitely going to be found guilty. I don't know exactly at what, because I don't think it's a RICO case, but I do think that you do have the sex trafficking, and he's definitely a domestic violence abuser. So is the case belong on a federal level? I mean, only if it's in the state lines. So if you're saying he's trafficking people from Miami to New York or from California, then yes. But as far as RICO, I think that was overblown. Yeah. Somebody in Logic's Finest asked this one. That's funny. P.Diddy used baby oil and Mangione. I saw that. Sal, can anyone answer why the cases of all the Adams cohorts are all just floating in limbo? Just curious. And why was Ingrid Martin the only person charged by Manhattan, not the DOJ? That is interesting. I don't know if you want to answer.
Yeah. I don't remember what Ingrid Martin was charged with. I can't remember off the top of my head. I have to assume that she was only charged on the state level because they simply could not find federal counts to charge her with. Maybe all of her actions were really just kind of New York City based. And the Adams cohorts floating in limbo, that is by mechanism of the fact that Adams's case was dismissed. Like, now that that's dismissed, there's a lot of things that need to happen for the prosecutors to make a determination about whether to go forward on the other people and how. And if they don't, how do they get themselves untangled from this without lawsuits, right? Like, if I'm arrested because I was, a co-conspirator with Adams, and you arrest me, you indict me, and I even pled guilty because of the pressure that you put on me, showing me all of these things that they have against me and Adams, and we're going to go down hard. And I plead guilty. And now you drop Adams, who was the actual big fish and who's the person you said I was helping. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue your ass. So they need to figure out how to untangle themselves without admitting that they screwed this whole thing up. Because, some people have not pled guilty yet. So, how do they get out of that pending case? By what? Dismissing it and then admitting that it was a false arrest, and now the person's going to sue them. But if they don't, then it's a malicious prosecution for them to continue to go forward. They're really in a huge mess. It's like what Sal was saying earlier, like the trickle effect, the ripple effect from what they did with Adams is going to affect so many people, so much money, so many lawsuits. I don't know if they thought this through. I don't know if they care or not, but it definitely has a ripple effect.
It says right here, the indictment alleged that Lewis Martin used her influence to eliminate roadblocks for the businessmen at the Department of Buildings in exchange for cash and other benefits, including $100,000 to purchase a Porsche for her son, Glenn Martin II. Also, a side note to that, she's also a consofrito girl herself, Ingrid. And her son, I believe, is a DJ who also performed there at one point. It's always the connections go back to the same circles. It's amazing. In this case, and the Department of Buildings who told them to tear the shed down but never enforced anything, never went back, never said a word. There's Ingrid Martin, who was right in. She is essentially the woman that put like Eric Adams on the map. It's his right-hand. Like she did all his work.
Yeah. Now that sounds like a criminal enterprise to me. That sounds more Rico than Diddy.
Yeah, that is for sure. And these guys are going crazy with. So Hunter said, this is funny. P.Diddy used baby oil and Chief Madry used KY jelly. Stay Trained Up said this definitely was Cass's and Adams baby oil. Because She says Cass will get embroidery on his baby oil bottle. Hunter said baby oil is cheap compared to KY jelly. Good question. Did the NYPD pay for his personal lube? Oh God, there's a lot going on with these guys. They all know each other. Here's the best part.
Yeah.
Matry, P. Diddy, Jimmy Rodriguez, Eric Adams, Ingrid Lou. That is the circle. They all know each other. They all hang out. That is where you have, okay, you want to look, there you go. But to say P. Diddy's a solo co-conspirator, you can't do that. Come on.
No. See, Eric Adams could have been served up on a platter with all of his co-conspirators to prove up a RICO case, but we didn't do that.
And then Lodrich Finest says Ingrid Martin knows where all the bodies are buried since she was the right-hand man for decades. Ingrid privately is saying her son conducted all the criminal acts she's accused of, just as an FYI. That's
my God.
How's that going to work? He's a little to no nobody rapper. This guy, she is the one in power. Yeah. Oh, and the China connection. Don't forget that. Winnie Greco and all that stuff.
By the way, real classy to blame your kid for your crimes.
Yeah, that's
like super classy act.
What kind of human being are you? You're blaming it's my son did all the stuff. It has nothing to do with me. So put him in prison and
nice
leave
mom.
him. Yeah. And by the way, who's a lawyer? Artie Idala.
Oh, yeah, your
friend. Another thing I want to bring up with you, right? Artie Idala. We saw him recently at Harvey Weinstein's case make a spectacle of himself, only to what? Once again, his client was found guilty. So it doesn't matter. All of that, he took a lot of money, and once again, his client's going to jail, remaining in jail, where he has his other case from L.A. And if you remember, your client was the one that helped put him away in L.A.
That's right.
They never mention her name and all of this. That's bizarre.
I do too.
If you would have just stuck to that, because if Ambra is testifying about anything in her testimony destroys Harvey Weinstein in New York City, yet they never brought her up.
Never.
They brought up all these other people, two that seemed in question apparently. Oh, I'm not a rapist, he said, or something like, I don't even know what that means. You're guilty. You are a monster. So after you saw all of the histrionics and he was found guilty, what is your thoughts on that case, on a Harvey Weinstein verdict?
You know, I'm glad that there was some justice in that case. I know that verdict was split. He did get a guilty. He got a guilty, he got a not guilty, and he got a hung on the 3 different counts, interestingly. I'm glad that he got the guilty because that will keep him in alongside the California case, as you just mentioned, will keep him in also. And I just think it's interesting because nobody is talking about this hung count, right? As you know, when a jury hangs, that case is not over. So that case still exists. It's still alive and well. And so I don't know if the DA is going to try to retry him again. I highly doubt it. Are they going to dismiss that count and hope nobody notices? Are they going to try to plead that count out? And is Harvey Weinstein going to just take it? I don't know. And I think it's a very interesting verdict that we got. I think the jury compromised in that case. I mean, I'll take it as long as he's gotten at least one guilty. There's some accountability there in that case. But I am so very, very curious about that hung count. I wonder what they're going to do there.
Yeah. And of course, you still have your own case.
Yes,
that
I do.
And Harvey would have to answer for that because in a civil manner, even though I think there might be a lot more behind that. And of course, the NYPD was behind some of that. And that just shows you They don't. That's why I thought bringing Amber's whole story up would have been more beneficial to this prosecution, as it shows this goes way back. Plus the connections, Harvey to the for that association, right? And it was whose brother was there? It was someone's relative that was there, and Bloomberg's. It was the mayor or something he's part of, and he was associating with these people and in those same circles. This goes back 10, 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
So
it's like a course of conduct. I mean, we have those counts for children who are abused, course of criminal conduct. And that's essentially what he's been doing. He's been living that way this whole time. Yeah, and if they had taken Ambra Gutierrez seriously from the get-go in 2015, where there was solid evidence on a wire that he was doing this, then he would have been stopped a hell of a long time ago. And they just didn't.
Actually, I remember who it was. It was a Tisch family. That's where Tisch and Weinstein, which now she's the police commissioner. It's her cousin, I think, was in charge, or one of the people on that board. And it just that whole tree, if you look at a connection, you go, something's clearly there's a pattern of behavior with him. And we know in the criminal field, patterns are good. That's what we want to see to get our guy. So there's a pattern, but they never brought this up. They brought up all these people, some of the women that may not have been believable, which that's where two of them, their stuff, they said, oh, there was nothing there. But Amber, there was something there. There's something serious there. And they never brought this up in the trial. And to see this guy grandstanding, I'm like, this guy's big with trying to put himself, I know this guy, he's big with trying to put himself in front of camera. It's like, again, a self-impressed mode. Look at me, even though this guy's guilty of sin, you're not getting him off. But, this and that, they made this motion, but you're guilty. So another guy, you basically took his money and he's going to jail anyway. He's staying in jail. That's how I see it. So you could have done that with anyone else, but you picked this guy that made a whole spectacle of himself, which was, I don't know, they were talking about that. He's still going to be guilty. It doesn't matter what he's saying. It's all, this guy is big with that. It's a whole bunch of like fluff that he's saying, like this case. But I thought about you and said, why is Amber not a witness? Why?
Yeah, I agree. And if people are interested, by the way, I hope you don't mind if I plug the website.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are calling for an investigation by the feds into the cover-up of Harvey Weinstein. And if you go to our website, which is www.investigatenyc.com, then you will see a petition that you could sign, and you could learn about the evidence, and you can hear the wire that was found that she wore. She actually wore a wire. She was like the bravest person ever. She wore a wire and got his confession, and they still didn't prosecute. It's like insane. I hate that picture of me, by the way. But the press conference you can watch, and it will lay out all of any questions that anybody has about this. I mean, it was basically the clearest, sex crimes case that they could have gone forward with, and they just buried it.
They just botched it. That's what it seems to me. They just, we don't want this to go any further because, we don't upset the Tisch family or whoever is associated with Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, and Bill Bratton, who's the police commissioner at the time, Michael Osgood, who was a deputy chief, retired. He and a lot of guys, they all he's a very likable guy. He knows everything about what's going on in the police department. But when he laid that out, you could see something is not right behind the scenes, and it shows the politics involved in that. That case is political because of Weinstein's associations. So this should have been dealt with years ago, and it didn't, and now it manifested into all these other things, and then people trying to say, but Harvey's got a pattern of that behavior. He's not just some nice guy who's a producer. I mean, come on.
No,
executive, movie mogul, whatever. The guy is a monster, and now I think the judge, it was right to be found guilty again, but I think that Amber should have been in that case. I don't know why they didn't bring her in.
I know. They claim that she was not credible, which is not possible because the evidence supported everything that she said. And then LA used her to get a conviction on their case. So she obviously was credible about this incident. No.
What up?
Isn't that unreal?
if this whole case goes they never mention, oh, by the way, he was found guilty in LA. So clearly he's guilty, and you just want to like brush over that fact. And that's the Artie Idal effect, who does go out and drink with the judges. Just want to throw that out. I think that is a rumor I've heard, that he likes to go out with. He knows the judges, so maybe their favorite. Because to me, how do you not say, okay, well, L.A. guilty? Oh wait, it's the same thing. We're just not talking about it in this case. In the L.A., you were found guilty with doing the same thing to the same people, but yet we're not going to say this at all in this case. We're just going to keep it to here. I found. I think he's a monster, and the guilty conviction was merited. Yes. Artie put on a spectacle as usual, but he still lost. So, and that's the name of the game with that guy. I just found that whole case bizarre, that Amber's testimony was not being used.
I know. It's tragic.
Lone Silencer says, amazing how it's always the same families and associates of family connected to stuff. It is the crime politics version of the Kevin Bacon game. Hey, you're right. It definitely feels like that. Mo She says, yep, Brat and Tish and Shot Spotter. Osgood is amazing. Told you, Osgood, everyone loves him. Logic's Finest says, I guess we're never getting the Epstein files from Iran-Contra to Epstein files. As long as you have the right friends, the rule of law in America doesn't matter. It kind of looks that way.
It does.
You know, I got another one for you, which is a little off base, but it kind of, again, plays into this little circle. And again, going back to the Consofrito crowd, Letitia James, who last time you came on, you brought up the whole mortgage fraud and what should happen there. Now there's even more about this case. Now she's being investigated in Virginia because she had a primary residence over there, but you can't be primary residence because you're getting a special mortgage deal, but you can't do that because you work and live in New York State. There's a woman that has come out and said that she sexually was harassed by not only Tish James, but her chief of staff, and she was covering it up. Ooh. The Post had originally written about this. The story here is that it got buried a few times, this story, right? And that's a sexual harassment. And this is this right here on the screen this is that property in Norfolk. And it said, according to Norfolk property records, James granted power of attorney to her niece, Shamice Thompson Hairston, on August 17, 2023, authorizing the purchase of the Virginia property, for which they secured a $219,780 mortgage. They probably went to go party at Consofrito after that. So the whole sexual harassment thing is pretty big. I forgot the name of this woman. We can look this up as an article. But she made a complaint back in 2015, 14, 16, in this range, to the New York State Human Rights Division. But the results of this never came out. It's like they completely buried this thing. And she worked there, and she was harassed by his chief of staff, who has another case as well. And they're just trying to plug the holes. But this woman is very adamant about it. And that one just came out, even though I kind of knew about it because it was known. And, of course, we have that whole human trafficking thing that was going on, that was reported at Consofrito, and nothing happened there. And she's smiling with Jimmy and all these other people, and nothing went on with that. So what is your take on that whole situation? Now, this sexual harassment thing that she clearly is covering up from her employees, and is involved herself, apparently.
I mean, I would love to foil that investigation and see exactly what was done and not done, because it sounds like she is very picky and choosy with respect to who she investigates and when. You know, I don't have a ton of dealings with her office, but I've been a little unimpressed with respect to what she's willing to do, even in light of evidence that exists, and what she's, essentially not willing to investigate. And this, to me, sounds par for the course, that she probably didn't want to investigate this as thoroughly as she, could have, because it involves somebody that was close to her. And I would like, and also, by the way, when it comes to somebody that high up in the office or that close to her, a lot of times you hire or push out to an external oversight investigative team rather than internally investigating it because of the possibility of this looking biased, right? Because of the fact that, like, yeah, you personally, you as the AG are close with the person being accused. Sometimes, just the appearance of impropriety is enough. And so there should be standards in those types of situations where you push those cases out to an unbiased, people do it all the time. I mean, agencies do it all the time. Companies do it all the time, where they will push it out. And so that nobody can claim that your investigation was biased, or, impartial. So I would be curious to see what exactly went down in that investigation and whether, who investigated it within her office and what the results were. It sounds like that woman never even got like a final decision from the office saying what they found, what they didn't find, etc.
Yeah, I can tell you, because it's all over the internet, and it is definitely is accused of sexual assault and abduction. That's what she's being accused of from this woman.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find an article right now myself. I know that this woman has made these claims for about 10, at least, I'd say a good like 10 years. She's been silent though, and she's trying to paint her as some nut.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's crazy. But clearly the abuse that was going on in the office was being covered up as well, because of the chief of staff that she has is the one that was clearly involved in this as well, and she's covering this up. And I got to get on top of this one because we've been all over the mortgage fraud and all of that. This sexual harassment that she is involved in or covered up herself with her, this is going to go far, I think, to add to the mortgage fraud. I mean, she's a mess. She shouldn't be the attorney general. That's the bottom. She wants to go party with Jimmy. She should go party with Jimmy and stay out of being attorney general because she's too involved in that stuff. Oh, speaking of the one and only Jimmy Rodriguez, Fat Joe. Very recent.
He's all the way up.
He's all the way up. He's another alumni of Sofrito himself. Mm-hmm. He just got accused of the same thing. It was in TMZ the other day of trafficking. And this guy was seen at Sofrito. I don't know. I think the guy's a silent partner, allegedly, because he was. And right here, Joseph Fat Joe Cartagena is being accused of sex trafficking. The 157-page lawsuit was filed June 19 in the Southern District of New York by lawyer Tyrone Blackburn on behalf of Terrence T.A. Dixon, who says he worked with Cartagena for over 15 years from 2005 to 2020 as a, quote, hype man, lyricist, background vocalist, security team member, and creative collaborator, according to the suit. Now, remember, that little night, that place he's hanging out. By the way, he's like, Jimmy talks about him like they're best friends. Like, oh, Fat Joe. Oh, Joe's my brother, he said recently. What is your take on that case? Because I don't know how Joe Tacopina is defending Fat Joe for anything, but that somehow they are. And again, this whole circle of people is always involved in stuff. James, Fat Joe, Eric Adams, the Caban brothers. It's ridiculous. Jimmy himself. It's the same circle.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you're just scouting for criminal friends, just hang out at Sofrito and you'll find them. Like, is that just like the place to go if you're like on the hunt for co-conspirators? It's so weird to me because the thread is still there. On the other hand, I will say, because I don't know enough about anything yet with this case, but I also can't ignore the fact that, like, I don't know if people are just looking at the Diddy case and being like, gee, if Diddy could go down for being like a disgusting, sex fiend, domestic abuser who's also happens to be like a music mogul for sex trafficking and stuff like that, I could sue anyone who's in that business, who's kind of like doing the same type of thing. And so that's why we keep talking about this ripple effect. I don't know if Fat Joe's innocent or not, but I'm just going to say, like, you can't just prosecute people because you feel like it, because you're opening things up. Even if you don't care about Diddy, if you think you're trampling on his rights and he deserves it, I don't care. The reason why lawyers exist and the reason why justice exists is because you have to protect the everyman. You have to protect like the regular people also. And so you can't just violate the law because you feel like it's cool or exciting to like take down the man. So I don't know if he's innocent or not, but I do feel like people are looking at Diddy and they're like, gee, I have a whole list of people who did what Diddy did. Let me sue them for like $1 zillion. Why not? If the feds think that's RICO and sex trafficking, why wouldn't a civil court with a much lower burden of proof feel the same way? So I don't know. I'm going to be waiting to see what the proof is, what the evidence is. It's super possible that as a Consofrito alum, he is definitely in on some bad stuff. But I would be, you know, I don't want to not say the other half too, because I think that that could be an equally relevant piece of this conversation, you know?
I know. So yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
Look,
Oh my God.
Fat Joe and Jay-Z. So an amazing little circle.
That is amazing.
And their names, look right here. This is just when they were closing this place. Fat Joe was at the restaurant when they had that illegal party outside. And they were together. Look, they always pictured together. That's Jimmy's. Yeah. That's Jimmy, who recently had his own problems, Sarena. I don't know if you learned about a stabbing incident that occurred at Sobro Garden. It's a vibe. That vibe could lead to getting stabbed in the face, apparently. And there was an individual that was jumped by 4 people, assaulted, stabbed. This was around 1:30-ish in the morning on the morning of June 7th. And this person then was running for his life, collapsed in the street, ended up in front of a Dunkin' Donuts. The police then go back to Sobro Garden, where then Jimmy Rodriguez himself is put into handcuffs, and he was arrested because he said things to the officer like, you don't know who I am, and I don't have to tell you my name, because they wanted the film, the camera, to prove what the hell happened in this place, who was doing what. But, of course, he was just given a summons for disorder. Here's the video. There he is getting arrested by the police. He himself got a C summons somehow for disorderly conduct, which is 240.20 subdivision 1, which is, I don't know, that's really light. So I don't know what the hell that was about, because the main thing here is there's an incident in this place. I understand, Sarena, Chief Gurley, who's a big frequenter of this place, is a friend of Jimmy's, the chief of the Bronx. He's livid. Remember that the chief of patrol, Mr. Rivera, is a Consofrito alumni himself, good friends with Jimmy and the Cabans. There's radio silence. We don't see one thing in the paper here, all about stabbings and how crime's out of control in the Bronx. Don't write about Sobro Garden, because Jimmy's the man the man with no name, the one we will not name. That's what he is in the media. There's an incident there now. The 4-0 at the same time, where this is where it happened, has a separate incident where they didn't take a report for a child neglect. Basically, it was a missing child. They completely just said, we're not going to do that. And they find the child in the river, and the father was arrested for something else. So they clearly didn't want to do any work. I don't know what's going on in 4-0 or the Bronx in particular, with Gurley involved and Rivera. This sounds like a cover-up here, because as you know, the NYPD executive, we just saw Martine Monterosso, was partying, good friends with Jimmy. She just can't stay away from him. She doesn't follow her own rules, Sarena, that you can't associate with someone who's reasonably believed to have engaged in or likely to have engaged in criminal activity. No, someone that had a stabbing in this place does not change their ways. She's hanging out with him. The other chief up there from the north was hanging out with him, Stevenson. Not all of these guys. Oh, the whole incident happened there is radio silence. Why? What's really going on there? And what is your take on that whole thing? Is it funny? I keep mentioning the whole circle, and I just gave you the alley to Jimmy.
It's that whole circle, and it's this secret circle. It's this circle of people who protect each other, and they're well, they're well funded, and they are well resourced, and they know all of the right people, and you're just going to continue to see regular people get arrested for way less. And you have Jimmy Rodriguez, who it sounds like he got a disc on, but sounded like from the description of events that it should have been an OGA, right? It should have been obstructing governmental administration if he didn't cooperate with giving over surveillance video or whatever else he refused to cooperate with. And that's a misdemeanor. That's not a violation like a disorderly conduct is. So, people get away with stuff, and you are thankfully able to name names because you know of this, but nobody else is talking about it because they know how to cover this stuff up.
No. And also, Sarena, as you know, if you don't do obviously the quickest way to go about this, if there's not a subpoena, because mind you, this is actually an open case right now.
Yeah.
As of right now, you could do a nuisance abatement order and shut down the place until further notice. And they have not done anything. And in fact, letting him out in less than 24 hours, the place is back open again. It's like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
But it's just like the days of Jimmy's Bronx Cafe, where you have incidents like this and the police clearly are turning a blind eye, because I'm questioning who was there. Who are these individuals? And is the police department involved? Meaning they either were there, meaning off-duty executives or their cronies hanging out there and either involved in this, or they were just there, meaning then they would have taken off-duty action, or they could be in trouble because they were there and they did nothing. So that's a whole separate issue. But again, I see the white glove treatment on an issue where it's like, you're crying about crime. We're looking to, and then you just want to act like that's never happened. Right. Yet again, because it's him, because that seems to be the common denominator. His other nightclub had all kinds of stuff. Nothing. We don't hear anything. You don't see anything. But I do see one constant: the NYPD. The NYPD. The NYPD is always there. That is the common denominator.
Yeah, I wonder who would have been on that surveillance video that he refused to turn over.
And you could always either subpoena that or, again, a nuisance abatement. I'm not going to let that go, because it's just simple that the police department is involved around this guy with everything I'm telling you. I mean, look, Lone Silencer said, sounds like Fat Joe put a whole new meaning to lean back, according to these accusations. Ye Wade said, Fat Joe sound like the name of a high-ranking mafia member. It's just, it goes on.
I picked the wrong song. Lean back was the right one to go with.
And it says, Logic's finest is not to be that guy, but doesn't the NYPD have fitness standards? I doubt that fat female officer can chase down and subdue an unruly suspect. Yeah. I don't know. They're sitting around, but they're not. That whole incident needs more details. This is a crime that occurred in the Bronx, and but it's at our friend's place that we all do something there. There's something going on there, just like his last place, just like Don Coquille, just like Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. It's always the NYPD is in the center of it. Why? Because you're breaking all the rules. You shouldn't even be there if you were doing security. You cannot do security in a place that holds liquor. ABC, you can't do that. But somehow that is okay. But being with a political consultant isn't. I don't understand. Somebody needs to explain all of this to me. But that
hypocrisy.
Is we're not going to drop this at all. I'm not dropping this. And so the next thing I was going to bring up is there's a video of this morning. Obviously, we've been talking about the Israel-Iran conflict. I want to put this up because Trump was getting asked about this stuff, and he had his response is epic. So I just want to show this. Let's listen to President Trump.
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too. Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
I swear to God, listen, he says so many terrible things. He does so many terrible things, but like, he's the funniest person I've ever met. Like, I hate to give him credit for anything, especially the rant that he just went on. And, my stance on Israel, I am pro-Israel, and I have family who live there. But that was really funny.
That is funny. That is funny. In the beginning, as you know, I'm not, I don't want to be in any war. So I'm like, why is America getting involved? And the more you look at it, again, I have friends that are actually Muslim, and I have a lot of friends that are Jewish, you included. And I have friends that are like, literally, they're in the IDF, like they're actually in military right now, and they do leak things and go, some of the stuff you're hearing is not true. But the whole incident there started where we look at, and I'm starting to see a lot of things. A lot of MAGA people are jumping into things, right? And like jumping on sides. So I don't know. It's like a divide going on with MAGA, because we voted for no new wars. We don't want another Middle East conflict.
Yeah.
The more I'm seeing about this, that he announced a ceasefire, and then this happened, and then there's another thing he mentioned, and they go back and forth, whether it's Bibi Netanyahu, the Iranian guy, that guy's insane. He wouldn't even listen to him. The guy probably, I don't know, God knows what the Iranian leader guy says. Nobody likes the guy. But this, Sarena, this looks like the WWE. He comes from that world. That's what it looks like. Yeah. I hate to say the world is on a stage, but it feels like that. This whole thing feels like it's, I don't know.
Listen, when you're the president of the United States of America, you can't be acting like that. You can't be just laying out F-bombs here and there, like on national television, international television, because look, even if you are the most well-rounded, conservative, intelligent, strategically sound person behind closed doors, if you act like that in public, nobody's going to believe it, and nobody's going to have faith in you. And it's true, this is America, and I think a lot of people have very strong feelings, rightfully so, about how much, if at all, America should be involved in this situation. And it's fair criticism, absolutely. But it's also hard to take him seriously when he does insert himself into these things and then complains about how it's being done. It's like, then why did you insert yourself? Even in his statement right before dropping the F-bomb, he says he's disappointed about the bombs that are being dropped because he told them that they have 12 hours, but he's upset that they dropped them all in the first hour. It's like, well, maybe you should have just shut up fully so that it sounded like you did give permission for it. I don't know. It's such a bad look, and it's embarrassing. And if we want to have, peace, if we want to do this the right way, then we have to act the right way. Like, we all have different positions. I'm not in this level, certainly, but I worked for a government for 16 years. And you worked for the government also for a long time, Sal. And when we were there, did we not have muzzles on our faces? Like, we couldn't say the things we're saying now, right? We just couldn't. You couldn't, because you're in a specific position and you have to act right, and you have to do the right thing, and you have to just always be acting appropriately and doing the things that you're supposed to be doing when you're a representative of the people of America, or the state of New York, or the city, or whatever it is. You have to act the right way in public, and you have to, not be acting like crazy, flip-flopping around, using F-bombs like that, just off the cuff as the president. This is why I can't be president.
But Sarena, usually the president is somebody who is like a lawyer for a reason, because you don't like, I guess nobody would say, people were big fans of Obama or Joe Biden, who's, Joe Biden, forget it. But Joe Biden was a lawyer. So lawyers know how to speak. That's the difference. And he is a guy who's off the cuff. You could tell. But that thing is just, it gave me the WWE feel. And now a lot of people quietly, you go online and looking and saying, is this all staged? Which, remember, the base that they hit in Iran on Saturday, there was no nuke. They took everything out of there already. And if you watch the previous thing with Trump, he was on Maria Bartiromo on Fox, I think like right after he left office. And he mentioned how Iran had called him and he hit them for something, but it was all like staged. They spoke to each other before they did. And he goes, it's a force that Iran has to strike something, but they called and said, get everyone out of there and we're going to do this. What is that about? That's literally like being in the ring. You have your hand up, you and your partner turns around, clotheslines you, and then the guy you think is your friend who's on there, that they call that a heel turn in wrestling.
Yes.
Jump in the ring. And that's what this has the WWE feel to it right now. And I'm like, I don't even know if any of this is real. Now I know people are dying, which is the thing, is there's real people dying, and you're like, are they dying in vain? And it's some kind of, I don't know, WWE-like event, because that's what I saw today, the feeling of WWE hit me. The way he's talking, the way they had a ceasefire to completely not following that. It's like, I'm the good guy. I'm the baby face, and then there's a heel. He's going to come in and clothesline me. He's going to be on the turnbuckle, and he hit. I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just shows another example of why we really can't trust Trump at this point. Like, he's not really adhering to certain promises that he had made on the campaign trail. And, we've talked about how disappointed we were and still are in his decision with Adams. So that's, right? Like, so it's a hypocritical position for him to be taking on a local scale. And now he's taking kind of a hypocritical position, or just like a nonsensical position on a global scale. And it's hard to trust this guy.
I am the same way where, listen, I voted, and people saying, you are not MAGA, Sal. You are not a true. Don't tell me I'm not a true. I voted for this guy 3 times. I lost my job because of this guy. If anyone should be holding his feet to the fire, it's me. Because I don't remember anyone in that administration even mentioning my name. Who cares? Sal Greco lost his life, lost his father, lost everything. But hey, he voted for us. He was part of the Trump, whatever you want to call it, Trump train. But hey, let's get back to whatever it is we're doing. I'm telling you that as a guy who's elected him, I just want to hold his feet to the fire. It's not about feelings. Nobody's personal, but you have to do what you're elected to do. Lone Silence is funny. I've seen better acting in the old school Cinemax Friday Night After Dark softcore movies than the 12-Day War. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair.
Chronicles of Collapse 22 says Sal is fake MAGA. How many who say that to you lost half as much as you have, Sal? I don't want to make it about myself, but to hear some of the stuff you hear, you're holding people accountable. That's what you elect people to do. Take your feelings out of it, which is something I do. Take your feelings out of it. You like this guy, don't like this guy. What are you doing for me? What are you doing for you getting elected? And what are you seeing? There's no legislation passed right now, right? You're still waiting for these big cuts that Musk did that now we may never see, that they're trying to pass this bill that looks like there's spending in it. It's just the WWE. And he knew that with Trump is that environment he likes. This 12-Day War thing, I don't know. It just seems WWE. The way the rhetoric. The final thing, though, before I let you leave, Sarena. Over the weekend, there was this video. And just to give the pretext here to the people, this video was of an incident that occurred in the Bronx. It looks like it's in transit. And there's going to be an off-duty cop. And apparently they're saying that somebody is stabbed in this video. I don't know. I didn't see it. It might be. I don't see any blood. Whatever the case is, I'm going to play this. This is an off-duty incident. So let's just play this, and then we'll both give our takes on this.
Okay.
Nah, they trying to get active. Oh, drop them. Oh, drop them. What about that? Oh, shit. Hey, yo, Ted. Hey, yo, put that shit down before you clap him, gang. Oh, dumbass. I know what I'm doing. Hey, yo, why you up in that? Nigga, what the fuck is dude doing? Hey yo, chill out. Hey yo, chill out. Move with you right this time. Move with you right this time. Drop it. Put that back. Are you wildin'? Put it down. Everybody back up.
I'm trying to explain this to you. Excuse me, I'm trying to explain this to you.
Hey yo.
I know you saw that last clip.
Oh my God, I want to.
I'm going to go first.
Please do.
I had a lot of Joe Coppers try to say, he did a great job. He's a hero. Let me explain something to you. Nowhere in the NYPD training curriculum does it state, look at this. Do you see this? Look how close this person is to him. Look, that right there could have been a shot fired. It would come right off the sidewalk, right into her head, his head, all because he's not even. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. So, in the NYPD, you always go back to what, Sarena? Your training. The minimal amount you have to do in the New York City Police Department when you have something like this or some kind of off-duty incident, remember, you're on duty 24/7, is you dial 911. Why do we do this, Sarena? Before you get involved in any situation, you need to assess it. In this situation, there's a crowd of people. There's at least, I see, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, maybe more in this station and outside. You are one person that's clearly outnumbered. To be getting involved in an incident like this, look, I could count right here, besides him, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I believe 9 with if there is a victim there. 9 people involved, and we don't know. And the guy filming's 10, and there might be more behind them. Remember, we're in a train state. And there's a guy right there, 11, some homeless guy who could clearly bum rush him and take his gun. There is nothing in the curriculum, I could tell you this, Sarena, or in your training that tells you to do this, what he just did. You have to assess the situation first off. You're outnumbered. The minimum I could tell is 11-1. You have no ASP, no body armor, nothing to identify you as a police officer. All you have is your gun. Oh, are you going to arrest someone? You need handcuffs, or radio. You're not calling backup. So what are you supposed to do? The minimal requirement is to dial 911. Unless you assess the situation and think one-on-one, you could do this. There's no one in the train station. But not in a crowd of people. You then take this gun out and you believe it's instead of saying, hold on or whatever, or going to the corner, dialing 911 and identifying yourself, because they would be there in less than a minute, probably, or less. And I understand the person's getting stabbed, but you have to understand that things could turn quick. You bring in a gun to this. They're all surrounding him. He decides to then jump in the fray and immediately put his gun out. So the number one thing, the last resort, the only card you have to play, you start with. He's bringing the gun out. And then, I don't know what he's screaming, because no one's paying attention to him. They're fighting each other. They're all running and screaming. Nobody's looking to hear him say, police, shield, whatever. And then they run outside, and Sarena, he's running. He's waving the gun around in the station. There's tons of people, innocent people. Anyone could run into him. Anyone could look to take his gun, which happened. He then trips over the turnstile now he's outside, Sarena. He then drops the shield. He's trying to scramble picking up. Mind you, the gun's still in his hand. He's not holstering. Then he's outside on the phone, not paying attention, because he can't. You can't do 20 things at once. He's trying to keep an eye on what's going on. And then you start seeing the street people. That's a gat, yo. What you doing, yo? You know why? They don't know who the hell you are. And in their eyes, if they take any kind of action on you, you're just a guy waving a gun. Nobody knows who the hell you are. Because again, no baton, no uniform, no body armor, no handcuffs, nothing to identify you as a police officer, no shield around your neck. Nobody knows who this guy is. And then as he's doing all of this and he's still waving his gun, he's still doing this, he drops his guard again, and then finally somebody almost takes his gun. People are saying, yes, you're a hero, you stopped the stabbing. If it is a stabbing, there's nothing that says it is. I don't understand how this is what you're supposed to do. Look, there's a guy right there selling fruit. You're waving a gun at him. You see that? And he's out in public. A man, this would come over as a man with a gun. This is an off-duty incident, the likes I really haven't seen. And this training in the NYPD does not prepare you to do that. It does not tell you to do that. He clearly hasn't following his training. By the grace of God, he didn't get hurt, severely hurt anyone else, shoot anyone. If there's somebody getting stabbed, I mean, there's thousands of videos going on. I'm not saying you don't take police action. I'm not the one to criticize you. I'm just telling you he clearly did not follow his training. And what could that lead to, Sarena? Because now you are you were the prosecutor, and then you're also the defense counsel. You give your take on that, knowing what I told you, because that is the official policy, NYPD. They do not train you to do what just happened there clearly off duty.
Yeah, I mean, and aside from being a prosecutor and defense attorney, I had a 6-year stint overseeing internal affairs at Rikers. Now, we didn't have this particular type of situation on the island, but I can tell you the lack of situational awareness in this gentleman is astonishing to me. I don't know that he has the temperament to be a police officer if his first instinct is in plain clothes in a crowded subway station and then stumbling out into public is to whip out a Glock and wave it around while focusing on his phone, on his shield that he dropped, and not even realizing that someone's creeping up behind him to steal his firearm, who might have thought that he was just a rogue civilian guy who was involved in this fight. Because, you know, he's not wearing the uniform. He doesn't have and you're right, like, play it out to the end. What do? Just shoot everybody? Because you're certainly not going to cuff anyone without handcuffs. So, I mean, you really think you're going to take control of a crowd like that and then call 911 and just everything's going to be fine? You're escalating a situation. Everything about policing calls for de-escalation, right? Because the one thing that you need to do is calm everybody down. And you just brought a gun to a knife fight and escalated everything above and beyond what it was originally and confused the entire situation by being in plain clothes rather than in a uniform. You don't have a partner there to back you up. You don't have a radio to call in. You don't have less deadly means of controlling the environment, like you said, an ASP, a taser, anything. And so this just was a debacle. The fact of the matter is you can't, and I always tell my investigators this all the time, you can't just look at the end result of a situation and determine from that whether policy was followed correctly or whether somebody did something right or wrong. The fact that nobody got killed that day or that his gun was not actually stolen that day does not mean that he did no wrong. He definitely did wrong. Now, if somebody play it all out. If somebody was killed or his gun was taken, he'd be fired. There'd be no question. He'd be fired and potentially prosecuted. So if the same actions that he took yielded those results, he just happened to not yield those results this time around. But 10 times out of 10, or 10 times out of 20, that's the result that would happen. So are you punishing the actions or the outcome? You have to take that person aside, and that he's going to have to face some sort of penalty.
I want to use this as a training video on what not to do when you're off duty and trying to take some kind of police action. They teach you to assess the situation before anything else. Because remember, you're all alone. Again, nothing to identify him as a cop. No body armor, no handcuffs, no asps. This is a recipe for disaster. And then look, any of these people, he dropped his shield. Any one of these people can bum rush him, and he's done. I don't want to. I literally heard people, a lot of Joe Coppers. He stopped this. He's great. This is one of the most, I don't know what to say, insane things you could do. This is like Batman. And this is what they teach you not to do. The reason is you want to always have a numbers advantage. You also want to be identifiable. And he clearly is not. And the risk that he gave to not only himself and the public is detrimental. And it's just I'm telling you, by the grace of God, that did not go completely south. Because that could have been an absolute disaster. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Somebody stabbed. Listen, you can see things in front of you that are even worse. Are you going to take police? Remember, when you take police action, you what's the number one thing they teach you? Your own safety, the safety of yourself and the others. Remember, this guy has a knife and you have a gun. And by the way, that knife, the guy with the knife was very close to him, and anyone around him is way too close for him. They teach you 21 feet of distance. Where did that distance come from? He's close quarters, waving his gun around. I mean, this could have been catastrophic, actually. Catastrophic. This is a video. I'm telling you, you want to be a cowboy or whatever, that's great. I mean, under John Shell, he loves this kind of stuff. This is why, though, he's a tax chief, by the way, apparently. You have criminals running the department who will applaud something like this when this is, kid, you need to go and get retrained. You have to be off the street. We can't be having this cowboy stuff. I see comments here, and stay trained up says this is why experience is the best teacher. He needs to go back to the academy for another cycle. Snake Pliskin says he just lost his chance of getting into a plain clothes unit. Pick a squad.
Yeah.
That's the best one. I'll bet he's a detective first grade in 6 months. Out loud.
Chief, he's a chief. I do want to address the stabbing thing. I'm not saying you can't use deadly force if somebody is in the middle of using deadly force or anything like that. But I don't see in this moment in time anybody being imminently stabbed or stabbed at that moment. If the situation deserved escalation at some point, but then later ended, you have to de-escalate as well. The fact that, we're seeing this video and he's still on and on and on with the gun post incident, if there was an incident to begin with, that's also a problem. And I think that's maybe the discrepancy here too.
Yeah. Again, coming from the police, and I don't care. I really don't. I'm not doing this to say this guy needs to be terminated, all this stuff. Yeah. This is for the men and women of all law enforcement. And of course, my alma mater, the NYPD. Why? The number one thing I tell people, and it's still in my brain, actually, what I'm doing day to day in my life, go back to your training. What does the training tell you to do? Because remember, Sarena, you've been there. You're either defense or prosecutor, cross-examining someone. Officer, what does your training say this? What has been trained or what does your training tell you to do? Can I tell you in that situation, I was trained to jump out with my gun and wave it around in the public and every single human being in there, and then I'm going to drop my shield, and then I'm going to lower my weapon so they can take it from me, and I'm so close. No, none of that. Oh, and jump in when it's, 11-1. And I just want to remind people, as you mentioned, is you're going to shoot someone. There's 11 people there. One apparently has a knife. I don't know, allegedly. The other ones don't. You have at most 9 rounds in that gun, or 16, because that's a Glock. Could you even shoot your way out of if you're getting all those people converging on you? Because it's real quick how they all turn around and all of a sudden the fighting stops and they're all looking at him. And that's how quick things could change against you. This is one of the worst bad judgment decisions I've ever seen. It just so happens it's in New York City. I'm not going to applaud this. I'm saying, kid, you're lucky that just went where no one got hurt. And I think this is a training video. Do not take action like this. I mean, stay trained up. Says his intentions were good, but he was extremely indecisive. Call 911, tell them what you got, and proceed with your training.
Yeah.
Your training, actually staying trained up, is you dial 911 and you wait for backup. That's one of the bare minimums. I'm sure the other guys are going to jump on this. John and Eric and Rob and Ron and Marlon also jump in. But I'm telling you, we're not trained to do that. I wanted your take because you're a lawyer, and you just said, I mean, what's your final thought on that? Because I can't believe that like they. And also, I don't know if there's any litigation to come forward out of this either.
Yeah. Well, I think that as I always would say, when I was as a lawyer, but also as an investigator, I want to know everything that happened. There are still certain unknowns here. And what I would be very interested in knowing is how this whole thing started. Because if this was an individual, if this guy just was looking at something and was not involved and his life was not threatened with that knife, and he was just on the subway and he happened to see it and he got himself involved in this way to the extent that he needed to use that weapon and he thought he needed to use that weapon, that's very different than if somebody had pulled a knife on him. I still say that what we saw after the fact was already, he should have had that weapon gone by then. He shouldn't have had it out by that point. But I do think that part of my assessment would have to be, did you get involved? Like, you as an off-duty person who didn't have to get involved, did you escalate this? Did you get yourself involved? Were you observing something down there and then you joined in and now you say you have to use the gun? Like, that's a problem. If you're the one who entered the equation and then drew the gun because you're like, oh, and I need to draw my gun because this is happening. Well, you could have avoided being a part of that by just calling 911 and following your training, as you say. So there are still unknowns. I want to know what happened to initiate this. But just seeing what I'm seeing, certainly a situational awareness problem at the very least, with respect to him having that gun out for as long as he did, not knowing his surroundings and allowing kind of himself to get so turned around that somebody was able to almost snatch his gun.
And let's say he isn't NYPD, let's say some other agency, it goes in any agency that your training does not tell you to do that. It doesn't tell you anywhere to jump in a scene. I'm sure it's going to say assess the situation, which would be the first thing you do. You're completely outnumbered. And that, again, good intentions, New York City, full of crime. That's the bigger issue, is full of crime. It's just another crime. There's tons of them going on. And again, this is nowhere in the media. I haven't seen this anywhere. New York Post, New York Times, New York Daily, no one's writing about it. They're too busy writing Trump, writing about him all day long. But this is a video in training, no matter where you are in law enforcement, of how not to do it. Your first part is right, where you have the awareness to say, I'm witnessing something. By the way, he'd be asked, what did you see exactly? Because you whip out your gun. It's not, I think I saw, it's, I know I saw a knife. I saw this stabbing. But again, if there's cameras and it proves that didn't even happen, you have, which is, again, it's like a catch-22. You go back to your training. Every officer out there, remember your training. That's all I keep emphasizing on this show.
Absolutely.
So, and with that, Sarena, I know it's been a long one here for you. I just, there was a lot to get to.
We had a lot to say.
A lot to get to the cases. Definitely all this stuff we're learning about all these characters. Luigi Mangione, we're going to stay on top of him. And of course, it's primary day still. You can call till 9 p.m. and then you'll learn about it about a year from now. And that's
we'll be watching and waiting.
Once again, where can people reach you? Where can people reach out to you if they need a good lawyer? Because you're pretty good at that.
Thank you, Sal. Yeah, you could reach me at my law firm's website, which is www.townsendlawnyc.com. You could also find me on Twitter at Townsend Sarena. Or X, I'm sorry. I would never want to mistake in that. I'm on Instagram at Sarena T, SarenaTee. And I'm on TikTok as Sarena Townsend. I'm literally anywhere. You could Google me, you'll find me.
but the TikTok is where you actually give all your legal. You
I
give your
do.
advice, not advice, but your opinions on all kinds of stuff that's going on. So
I
that's
do.
why I suggest people go to TikTok if you have it. Follow her there because she's on top of any case and especially updating us. I'm watching myself about P.Diddy and Luigi Mangione because I like these things because this is going to affect other cases and other things going on. So
That's
great
true.
job as always, Sarena.
Thank
So,
you, Sal.
Stay cool. Stay in a nice air
Oh
conditioner.
my God. Thank you so much. It's so
Don't
good to
mention-
see you again.
Don't venture out there too deep.
No, I will not. Thanks again, Sal.
Anytime, Sarena. Thank you. That's the great Sarena Townsend. She's wonderful. She's very knowledgeable, and I highly not only respect her opinion, but her take on things I think is very important because she's played all sides. She was a commissioner, she was a prosecutor, and she's a defense counsel now. She's done it all. That's someone you want to go to when you see something or some kind of criminality or some issue because they're a lot smarter than the common person. And with that, I'm going to bring on Jack, my producer, for Producer's Take. Jack, don't beat me up about the Mets. I know you want to.
No, it's okay, Sal. I've gotten over it. I've come to realize that the Yankees are going to be winning the World Series no matter what anyway. So even if we do have a repeat of 2000, the Subway Series that saw the Yankees crush the Mets, I'm not worried about facing you guys anymore. But how is your team going to get to the All-Star break? I'm not even worrying about September at this point. They've lost 9 of their last 10 games. Pitching staff has been absolutely awful. Pretty much no production out of the bottom of the lineup. Third base, second base, center field are all kind of black holes, effectively speaking, because guys have been moved around in all 3 of those spots and nobody's been consistent. So I'm very worried about the depth on this Mets squad. And we're starting to see some of those cracks that are going to make them vulnerable as we start to get into the second half of the season.
Yeah. But on the flip side, the most important part was people were getting on Juan Soto, and Juan Soto will probably make one of the biggest charges you could see as the season goes on because, like I said, Latin players tend to start off slow because it's very cold in New York, and as it heats up, they heat up. And boy, is he heating up because he's on fire. And I told people he's worth every penny. And I saw it. He was belting home runs all weekend. He's getting big hits. He's getting RBIs. But now you have the failure of they can't pitch. They can't field. All of a sudden, the Mets are in that little moment where you go, oh, here's the first snafu of the season. You just hope doesn't become a season-long thing because they were doing so well, and it's like they hit a brick wall. And you need to also produce homegrown talent as pitching as well, like starters. They don't have that. They have in the minors. They just haven't brought anyone up.
Well, we saw Blade Tidwell over the weekend. He made his second start. Very unimpressive again. Brandon Sproat, the top prospect who's at AAA Syracuse right now, hasn't been able to stay healthy. So there are guys kind of coming up through the pipeline. It just hasn't materialized. And then we all know about the debacle with Francisco Alvarez, where he had that pass ball where Trevor Canning kind of rolled his eyes and gave him that evil glare that we see pitchers give catchers when they make a mistake. He was sent down after the game despite having a home run. A lot of Mets fans were overtly critical about that decision. But listen, if he's not going to be getting everyday reps at the big league level with a team that's in win now mode, give the starting job to Luis Torrens and make Hayden Senger the backup catcher. That's the best option because ultimately you need to get Alvarez up to speed to a point where he's playing every single day and contributing equally on offense and on defense. He's regressed a little bit on both categories. Can we trace that back to the injury issues he's had over the past couple of years? I don't know. I mean, it's never really like a linear trajectory when it comes to a lot of these young players, but eventually he's going to have to grow up and become that number one prospect that he was billed as for years and years and years.
Yeah, he was, I don't know what to say. I think that I'd rather see Torrens in there. And by the way, Torrens, he was also pretty good on the Yankees, and then they gave up on him. So, I mean, again, he's another guy that he's having a good season. I don't understand why that's your starter. Alvarez, Well, the Mets, we'll see what happens. They got another game tonight, and they've only won one game in their last 10. Also, I believe the Thunder, I watched the Thunder defeat the Pacers, and it was terrible to see Halliburton go down with the Achilles. That's the second big player that went down with that. I think all these games are a factor. You have not only the games that you play during the season, they have this in-season tournament stuff. You can't. You need two squads then. You need a backup squad, and you need the front starters, your front five. You have, if they're not going to do something like that, then people are going to get hurt. And that's what we saw. And unfortunately, the Pacers, this guy in 7 minutes had 3 3-pointers. He was on fire. And I mean, from that moment on, it's like the soul got sucked out of the Pacers, and then the Thunder went. So congratulations, the Thunder are the new NBA champs. I believe it's the first championship under Oklahoma City since they've been there. But I think they were the Seattle Supersonics, so they won a long time ago in the late 70s. So, but another NBA season in the books, and maybe your New York 1973ers, who are a racist organization, maybe they can do something. But I don't know. I think that whole Spike Lee vibe is just a loser vibe that you'll never win again.
Well, in regards to the Pacers, I got the sense, Sal, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I felt like the Pacers were a little bit emotionally spent because that series in the Eastern Conference Finals with the Knicks went to 7 games, and it was very back and forth, kind of a tug-of-war type of series. Then they end up winning. They win a couple games in the finals, and then all of a sudden the wheels kind of come off the car a little bit. Rick Carlisle is as good as they come when it comes to head coaches in the NBA. I want to give him a lot of credit, but this team just fell flat on their face down the stretch. We can blame some of that on Tyrese Halliburton's injury. On a personal level, I'm really concerned because it's rare for basketball players in that stage of their career to come back from the injuries that he's trying to come back from now. But aside from that, there was not nearly enough picking up of the slack from the rest of the team, whether it be Pascal Siakam or the bench that was so good in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. So, I mean, it was a cohesive effort. I do think that the Thunder ultimately were the better team, but that Pacers squad, when they reflect on this season, is going to be saying that was the series that got away. We should have won.
Yeah, I think the Pacers should have won considering where they were positioned at, but I think when Tyrese Halliburton got hurt, that was it. And I hope this kid could recover. I think he's like 27 years old. You know, Achilles, I could tell you, takes a couple of years to get back to. And I don't even know if he'll ever be the same player again. I've seen soccer players do it, and then they're never the same player again. But this guy was like Iron Man and Superman in one in the playoffs. And he put a dagger in your 1973ers, which, you know, Madison Square Garden is the home of losers at this point. That's how I
That's what I call poetic justice, Sal.
1973, you're going on 50 years and counting. You're now you'll be 53 years starting next year because you're not winning next year as well. You don't even have a coach. So that's what happens when you don't have a Jewish Heritage Month and Italian Heritage Month. You're racist. So the New York 1973 is good luck in your next season, but congratulations to Oklahoma. Now, I know your take was going to be, I believe, today on the primary, which is very hot right now in New York City. So what do you got for us?
Well, so I was going to go into the primary, but it's gotten a little bit chippy in the pit being where the press corps likes to sit and ask Eric Adams questions. So I'm going to go into that, a little interaction I had with Katie Honan and Kayla Mamalak and Chris Summerfeld on X. I'm trying to be the peacekeeper and the mediator, as I'll point out in a second, but because it's election day, we do need a little bit of comedic relief, if I do say so myself. So last night, as I was thinking about Andrew Cuomo's return, his vengeful comeback, if you want to call it that, I said to myself, I've seen this before. There was a mafia don years ago who took over for his father, and he led one of the most fictitious, powerful crime families known to mankind. And his name is Mr. Michael Corleone. And Michael Corleone in The Godfather 1 and 2 was like Andrew Cuomo, right? Very ambitious guy, had his whole life in front of him. But at the later stages of his career, he just kind of seems like this grouchy, angry version of Michael Corleone that doesn't want to be there anymore, right? He resigned in disgrace, horrible situation. Everyone kind of forgot about what happened. He disappeared from the picture. But just like Michael Corleone in The Godfather 3, when he strikes the deal with that Italian church and he somehow kind of comes back into things. And then we all remember the famous scene, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. So that's kind of where Andrew Cuomo is right now. He hasn't been in politics in 4 years. And as Neil S. points out, yes, their brothers, metaphorically speaking, are both Fredos. We all know about the role that Chris Cuomo played in providing positive coverage for Andrew Cuomo. And if you want to talk about this discussion coming full circle, Chris Cuomo suffered a very similar fate to his brother for being a dishonest reporter, right? So it's kind of funny that Neil brings up that point. But yeah, I mean, Cuomo, is this a good or a bad analogy, right? Because like he disappeared, you thought he was done, but then like the quest and the desire to regain the power he once had was too good to pass up, especially when he was looking at some of the other candidates. I felt like he said to himself, I have to do this one more time.
I'll tell you what, Jack, if you mention Godfather 3 and he's Michael Corleone, remember how the movie ends. He basically loses his family. He lost his daughter, and he dies alone on a chair in the middle of Sicily. That could be Cuomo after today. You know, who knows? He ends up on the chair and going into he just goes in his backyard, and that's, you know, time goes by and everyone forgets about him and it's over. I think that
outcome is playing out almost to a T, especially when you consider today's events, right? Cuomo showed up at the polls and said pompously, I'm only ranking myself. This comes after Whitney Tilson and him have formed this weird allegiance where Tilson is Cal Naughton and Cuomo is Ricky Bobby in Talladega Nights, and Tilson's kind of trying to push him across the finish line. And then Jessica Ramos endorses Cuomo out of fear because she knows that there's a lot of union workers in her district. So you have two people backing you, and you're kind of operating like a ruthless mafia don, cutting anyone and everyone who stands in your way off. I feel like the Cuomo death, metaphorically speaking, is going to be a lot more sad when you consider that Mamdani's gaining momentum. He's going to be overtaken, believe it or not, by the new mafia don. Now, the five families which occupied New York City for a very long time, that almost never happened. So we're seeing something in the political realm of things that we thought we cut off by eliminating all of these organized crime families years ago.
Yeah. The comeback of Cuomo by the end of today, well, we'll know in a week whether he did enough or not. But of course, Mamdani does have like a chunk of the Jewish vote. He somehow, as crazy as that sound, he's got about 20 or 25% of them. And that, if he wins, would you be surprised? I don't think so. If Mamdani won, would you be surprised at this point? Anything? I always said New York City, anything can happen because he's low information central. That's how I see it.
So if Mamdani wins, I don't think anyone would be surprised. And to, you know, take the conversation full circle and hone in on the odds here that are going on, because there's been a lot of money placed on the election. As you guys can see, Zoran Mamdani is the winner for the Democratic nomination. And the winner of the Democratic nomination also is the heads-on favorite to win the election as a whole. So, I mean, whoever is the Democratic nominee is likely to be representing New York City as the next mayor. As crazy as that might sound, because Eric Adams, who's the incumbent, is thinking about running as an independent. So no, I would not be surprised if Mamdani won. I'm almost expecting at this point, because there's a lot of anger and aggression toward Washington, and the events over the weekend, rightfully or wrongfully so, earned him those additional brownie points, which could turn voters in his favor and subsequently give him that nomination.
Yeah, that would be to be continued. If that happens, man, yeah. Lampwick says state-run supermarkets, where the 8 o'clock coffee. I'm on my phone.
It's crazy that we're in a situation where we're convincing ourselves that a governor who resigned in disgrace and a current mayor who's had multiple members of his administration investigated and taken down by the FBI. We're convincing ourselves that we need these two guys to functionally run a city because the alternative is so terrifying. Like that's the point in a nutshell that New York City is at right now. I heard Eric Dim say yesterday on the Finest Unfiltered podcast, like what's old is being wrapped up as in a present and being advertised as what's new. Yeah, that's the case. But if we don't want foreclosures, crime in the subway, empty abandoned buildings everywhere with all of these wackadoodle policies, I think we need to rationalize these decisions. No?
Yeah. You don't want New York City or parts of it to become like East Cleveland or something like that. Look into that, because that is hell on earth, is this East Cleveland. That might be a neighborhood in New York City at this point with all these idiots running, because they clearly don't care. Stay trained up, said Mamdani, that idiot who said he will defund the police. New York is low information central. Idiots. Lampwick said, credit to Anthony Cumia. Shout out to Anthony Cumia, my paisan. Good old Opie and Anthony show. That was good. You're bringing back memories.
So also going on today, I mean, we wanted to talk about the election on this show. I was going to do a deep dive into the poly market odds and everything involved. But Sal, just like you're on the front lines advocating for police equality and all of those things, I have to be a good Samaritan in my own right? I'm a former member of the press in New York City, was a member of SAG-AFTRA, the union. And long story short, there was a little bit of chippiness between the press corps last week where Chris Sommerfeld kept calling out questions. Eric Adams banned him. After a press briefing, they had a little confrontation outside of City Hall where Sommerfeld asked him about Tim Pearson's taxpayer-funded payout in a lawsuit. Kayla Mamalak, his press secretary, said, reach out to the press office. And then today, after Friday, Sommerfeld goes on New York One. He gets some support from Bobby Kuza, who hosts a show on New York One, Sally Goldenberg from Politico. So he has the wave of momentum behind him, right? Despite the fact that he's kind of a obsolete reporter in the minds of the press office, he still has his colleagues getting behind him. So round 3 of the heavyweight bout, the first time that all of the involved parties were in the same place at the same time today. Get your popcorn ready. Here's what Eric Adams had to say.
There is no rule or law that states that. If I'm in the streets, you guys stop me, you put a camera in my face. If I choose to answer, I answer. That's the beauty of this country. The beauty of this country, you have the right to ask a question. The beauty of this country is that I have the right to answer the question. That's what's great about America. And we are continuing to follow that. I decide with my team who we are going to call on. That is the beauty of America. I decide if I'm going to answer you, and I decide if I'm going to call on you. Other countries, you don't have that luxury. Other countries, you're dragged away if you do something wrong. And so we're deciding who we're going to call on in my autonomy.
So I know that Eric Adams is petitioning for a job in the Trump administration. He obviously worships the president, probably bows down to a photo of him every night. But like, what is he talking about? I pick who I want to call on. This is what's going on in other countries. Like, bro, you are the mayor of a city. You are not the president of the United States. So like, he clearly lacks situational awareness in this case. It's sad, Sal, because he's totally right in saying that I don't have to call on everyone, but in a world where delivery and how you phrase something is everything, he just came off as being very obnoxious and rude in a very condescending way. So I decided to chime in because I'm a very nice guy. And I said, so to reiterate, NYC mayor and his office have all the leverage. Engaging in a tug of war for access won't force them to actually give it to Chris Sommerfeld. Being scrutinized for being unfair doesn't bother Adams or Kayla Mamalak. Shaming them won't work. And in doing this, I was just trying to make the point that, look, he doesn't need to give you guys access. Like, stop being so public about what's going on behind closed doors, right? That's a big rule in media. You're supposed to handle these situations privately, and they've kind of broken that rule. So obviously, Katie Honan chimes in saying, what works then? If you don't stand up for press access, then what comes next? And then we went back and forth a little bit. And lo and behold, the two perpetrators, if you want to call them that, are involved, because Katie and I were kind of going back and forth on their behalf. So Maymalak says it absolutely has not been discussed privately. So that's a little bit of a clarification. In fact, I reached out to you to meet and have a constructive conversation, but you declined for your own safety. LOL. Ooh, it's getting chippy, right? Hey, Caleb, this certainly has been discussed privately. I had a lengthy conversation about it with you over the phone just as a few weeks ago, as you know. So in my situation, like, I just want people to be a little bit more civil about what's going on, because this is getting really ugly. And as an outside party who's advocating for equality, I don't like what I'm seeing, like this passive aggression toward one another. So Sal, in your judgment, I mean, you know a little bit about the way that DCPI works and public affairs, public information. You've been around it. You used to work for John Shell, who at one point was making close to $300,000 to manage media relations for the NYPD. We'll save that discussion for another day. But what are your thoughts on how the mayor's office has handled all of this, and then kind of the reaction that's taken place? And what do you think about kind of where I stand as someone who stood behind the curtain?
I think you're trying to be a referee with this. But again, Eric Adams makes his own. He is the problem, because he really does. He mentions other states, other countries. He knows other countries. He was taking money and God knows what else from them, whether it was Turkey, China. He knows other countries all too well. He shouldn't be even talking like that. Thank you, President Trump and Emo both. Thanks a lot for that gift. Hope the crypto was worth it for you guys. But that's the reason you have him acting like that. And Kayla, again, I know she follows all of us, but she's his puppet. Whatever he tells her to do, she's going to do. She's just a lot smarter than all the idiots he had running before him that were too busy partying to the break of dawn with Jimmy Rodriguez and company to do their job and do God knows what else was going on with those guys up there. So that's the problem with it. It's Eric Adams. And trust me, after today, in 1 week, you'll learn of who would be the main replacement, I guess, for Eric Adams. And this is June. You got less than 6 more months to deal with him as the mayor. And he'll be, if he's in a Trump administration, shame on Trump. But, you know, he doesn't have the greatest judgment with the people he puts in charge anyway. So I think you were right. But I do think he should be answering Chris Sommerfeld. And he should not be telling who you could put a camera in my face or whatever. You are the mayor, and that is the press. And the press works for the people. And so do you. So he thinks he's above it all. He's been like this since day one. I mean, Anthony DiMaggio, shout out to Anthony. He's been a guest on this show. He says it best. It's very dangerous when former state politicians come back on the local level. They have all their old state connections intact and makes them far too powerful. I agree.
I cannot get behind this comment from the lone silencer. I low-key want Adams to somehow win as an independent, as he is comedy gold. First of all, yes, Adams should be answering all of the reporters' questions. Right. Technically speaking, he doesn't have to, but to extend common courtesy to the people of New York who are getting information from these people, he should be answering them. He shouldn't just be saying, I'm going to put everything out in one press release. Also, with Kayla Maymalak in her job title, it should say press secretary / crisis communications manager, because look at all that she's had to deal with just over the past week. I mean, over the weekend, there was an article released by the New York Post that Eric Adams was going to be funding migrants in New York City with $1 billion of taxpayer-funded money. And Maymalak was very quick to come to his defense regarding that story as well. So she's really got a lot on her plate. I understand their stance and where they are at. But listen, you talked about me being the referee. I'm trying to play both sides, right? They don't really need you. They're going to treat you as such. But in order to justify your existence and give them reason to have you there, you need to be professional, and you can't be waging wars with them, because that just simply does not work anymore. Whether it be what took place on Friday, the segment that all 3 of those reporters did on New York One, where they spent the first 5 minutes airing personal grievances about what took place. This is not a battle of you versus them. You guys need to be in cohesion. And although you might not agree on everything, and although Sommerfeld may be wanting to get answers about what took place with Tim Pearson. We all want answers about those things. You need to do it in a more civil, professional manner, because this is not going to warrant good outcomes for anyone in this situation.
That's funny. Crazy 10-7 said, what did he start other than hook up his people so they can kick back to him? Yeah,
he ain't wrong. He ain't wrong. How many ranks was Edward Caban promoted again?
Well, no, it's Kaz Daughtry that promoted at least 8. All the way
At least 8. But Caban like went from being an inspector,
chief,
commissioner, like he flew up the food chain, as did Tanya Kinsella. There were a couple other examples of people who got hooked up with crazy cushy jobs. But yeah, I mean, it's the classic example of cronyism running the institution.
I agree. Jack, good as always. Thank you for your take. We'll have Jack back, of course, on Thursday, and that's where we expect you to be. Thursday, you're going to be right here starting at 1 o'clock. But before then, tomorrow at 8:05 live, check us out here right on this YouTube channel, right on X. You check out the Finest Unfiltered with John and Eric. I'm sure they're going to have a guest on, as they always do on Wednesday. Be on the lookout for that announcement. John will put that out probably in an hour or so. And also, the Executive Perspective will be on tomorrow at 17:05, 5:05. That's Rob Lukash and Ron Layson. So you can watch that as well. And I'll be back here on Thursday at 1 o'clock. We still won't know who won this primary until, I don't know. We'll see. They say a week, but, you know, we've heard that one before, right? So thank you all for tuning in today. One last comment, Crazy 10-7. What about every captain in DI to 1 stars and Tariq the Trick from Inspector that made up to 3-star? Tariq Shepard, by the way, if Cuomo did become the mayor, would be your next police commissioner. Just keep remembering that. You gotta remember that one. All right. So hopefully it doesn't happen, but we'll know the results next week, allegedly. But until then, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. If you're in New York City, stay hydrated, stay in that air conditioner. It's a hot one. It's getting real hot out there. So if you're standing in line to go vote, I don't know. Sometimes early voting might pay off on a day like today. So if you're in line, just hang in there. Yeah, every vote matters. Every vote counts. Your voice does matter. Even though people tell you it doesn't, it does. Or else you're going to end up with Eric Adams again. Do you want that? So make sure you stay in line and you vote. Folks, that does it from here. Hope everybody had has a great rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everybody in the comments, all the fans and all the haters as well. We'll be back on Thursday at 1:05. So we're signing off from sunny Florida, as you know, because what is it here? It's a sunny place for shady people.
So this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?